Hello and welcome back to the Cinema Tirana YouTube channel, where we engage media, films, and the world thoughtfully, critically, and with discernment, all from a Christian perspective. Today we are talking about Spider-Man No Way Home. So as of the recording of this video, Spider-Man No Way Home has made $1.7 billion at the domestic and international box office. This movie is huge. It's part of the giant Marvel machine that keeps pumping out content after content after content. So I'm going to give a review of this movie, some thoughts to think about this movie when it comes to viewing it as a Christian, what themes is the movie engaging in, what are some things to look out for, and what does the movie do well in representing the Christian framework. So let's start off with a technical review of the movie. The movie is technically really good. It has great characters, great performances. The visuals are pretty stunning. There is that little bit of CGI wonkiness that comes with these superhero movies, but overall the movie is technically pretty good. The only place where it falters is the story. Sometimes the story doesn't make a lot of sense. There's a lot of plot holes. But I think overall, the end experience, especially for Spider-Man fans, is going to be a really great, satisfying movie. I'm pretty sure you've seen it already. Since most people have probably seen this movie, I'm going to go into spoilers. Spoiler warning. Massive spoiler warning. So let's get into it. Let's talk about the good in this movie from a Christian perspective. This movie is really strong when it comes to its main character. And this is something that's true of most other Spider-Man movies, that Peter Parker is such a great example for what it means to be a hero, and specifically what it means to be manly in a godly sense. Peter Parker is always the one self-sacrificing for the good of others, takes on responsibility and power in an honorable way to serve his neighborhood. He's a really good role model, especially if there's kids watching this movie, over what it means to be a hero, and it's something that audiences have identified with pretty much since the beginning of Spider-Man. This movie portrays Peter once again making intense sacrifices. By the end of the movie, he's lost pretty much everybody in his life, all for the good of others. That's something that's very Christ-like, it's very honorable, and I think is really important in these superhero movies. And in a lot of cases, these superhero movies do well at portraying a hero that becomes heroic by self-sacrifice. Let's take a look at some of the symbolic meaning too. Having 3 Spider-Man on screen at the same time, in a weird way, is very symbolic of the Trinity, and is a pretty good analogy for the Trinity. Again, you know, like every analogy for the Trinity, it falls short in some way, but I think this one addresses some things that other analogies don't. So this might actually be a good movie to help communicate to kids a framework for understanding how the Trinity works. So in this movie there are 3 Spider-Man, which are all Spider-Man, and they're all fully Spider-Man. Neither of them are 1/3 Spider-Man, but they're wholly Spider-Man. In the same way that each person of the Trinity is fully God and not 1/3 of God. And they're 3 distinct persons who are fully in themselves Peter Parker and Spider-Man. And that's also a pretty good analogy for the way Christ is fully God and fully man. So it works on a lot of levels. It doesn't work in the sense that, you know, there's no Father Spider-Man, there's no Son Spider-Man, there's no Holy Spirit Spider-Man, but I think it might be able to communicate a little bit of how the Trinity works. People who are just learning about it, which is a very interesting thing, that movies like this are engaging with truth and how the underlying truth underneath the universe is manifesting itself in the media that we watch. And to put this kind of Trinitarian heroism on film, in the cinema, which is in a lot of ways a religious corporate experience in the way that church is sometimes. It is really powerful that masses and masses of people have this need to go experience good, proper heroism in a biblical sense, and also engage with a form of Trinitarian worship. To me, it just indicates how much the world really needs Jesus and needs God at its center. Let's take a look at some of the things that you might want to be aware of while watching this as a Christian, and to engage with it thoughtfully. Let's call this the not so good stuff about the movie. Because it's a product of the world and product of the industry, there's always going to be some things that fall short of what is true and what is good, and this is true for every movie. So the first thing that you might want to be wary of is Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin. So Willem Dafoe is an absolutely masterful actor. And in this movie, he operates in the way that somebody who is demonically possessed in the Gospels operates. He kind of blacks out, he injures himself, like a lot of the stories in the Gospels, and he's possessed by this persona, which is the Green Goblin. The movie plays this as kind of something materialistic and scientific that is happening to his brain because of the chemicals ingested by Willem Dafoe's character in the earlier Spider-Man movies. But that doesn't change the fact that symbolically, Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin, Norman Osborn, is in a lot of ways a demoniac. Is this something that's gonna stop Christians from watching this movie? No, I don't think so, because the film is centered around the redemption and the healing of these past villains and reinstating them into the image of God. So by the end of the movie, Green Goblin's healed, Norman Osborn is put right back into his right mind by the power of the Spider-Man. So the movie is still ordered in a way that doesn't praise or lift up or magnify this evil. It's still very much a good versus evil story with not a lot of gray in the middle. This brings me to the character of Doctor Strange. So Doctor Strange is a magician, he's a sorcerer, and when it comes to that, it's up to every Christian's convictions about what they watch on screen and what kind of things people are willing to be engaged with. Doctor Strange's magic is contextualized within the fact that it is not a good thing in the story for Peter to engage with Doctor Strange. He kind of makes a deal with the devil, and as a result, he pays the ultimate sacrifice in the end of losing all of his friends and family. So the film is still ordered in the sense that when somebody engages with magic, it's not going to end well for them. God has given us rules for engaging with the spiritual realm, and we're not to break them, or else we will suffer consequences as a matter. As for Doctor Strange's character for the greater MCU, that's kind of a whole video in itself. I have a lot of thoughts about that. Since he's been in so many films, there's a lot of thinking to be done there for Christians as to whether or not this is something that they're willing to see on screen. So overall, I think this movie is a fantastic example of heroism, good versus evil, a weird analogy for the Trinity, and it's something that I would recommend Christians see as something that is more edifying than a lot of other movies that are out right now. And if you're a comic book superhero fan, man, I grew up with Spider-Man. I cannot get away from Spider-Man. I think it's such a great example and such a great sign that when a movie gets it this right. Now, you know, it's not a perfect movie, but I think it's pretty great. So if you're a Christian or a non-Christian who has some thoughts about this movie, I would love to engage with them. We'll have some thoughtful, irenic discussion in the comments down below. Let me know what you think about this movie. What do you think is significant about this movie? And hit the subscribe button as we try to build this community, have this YouTube channel as a resource for Christians to go to thoughtfully engage with media, movies, and the world, give people good frameworks to not disengage with the culture, but to be a part of it and bring the goodness of the gospel to its culture. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.